And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winick. I am the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage, and welcome to our podcast, Leveraging Thought Leadership with me. Today, my guest is Phil Gerbyshak. I hope I pronounced that right. I forgot to ask you that, Phil. I've known you for a long time. Did I get it right?
You nailed Pete. Thanks.
Good. That was the hardest part of my day, I think. So anyway, Phil, let me give everybody Phil's bio. I've had the privilege of knowing Phil for quite some time. Phil is a sales and marketing technology speaker and trainer. He teaches people how to connect and use people and technology together in order to drive sales growth. He's written a book on LinkedIn and networking on LinkedIn and connecting on LinkedIn. He's got a course coming out on that. He is someone who has leveraged his content and is continuing to be creative and innovative in the ways that he does that. So welcome aboard today, Phil, and thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Peter. It's great to talk to you, buddy.
Great. So again, leveraging thought leadership. I'm sort of a one-trick pony. This is all we talk about all day, all night. It's not a 24-hour show because I think we'd run out of air eventually. Give me a sense of sort of two things. Who are the best clients for you? So let's start off with target. So you're a marketer first, I would argue. Who are the best clients for you?
Well, the best clients for me are a B2B higher ticket salesperson that understands that relationships take time to build. So that means, B2B insurance, that means commercial real estate, that means financial professionals, anybody who really gets the fact that it's a longer term relationship and that it doesn't just happen by showing up and throwing up. You really need to build that relationship.
Excellent. So what I love about what you've said is you're already at probably the top 10%, is you were able to answer that question with a high level of specificity. So now I know that I shouldn't connect you to Fortune 1000 folks. I shouldn't connect you to someone that owns 8 restaurants in Southern California. You made it really clear. B2B high ticket sales. Bang. I got that. I have a clear picture in my mind. I know who you can help. And conversely, I know who's probably not a good connection for you. Next question, which is related to that, because it's sort of a qualifying round here, if you will, is give me a sense of Phil World. So I now connect you to 5 people that look exactly like the profile. How easy have you made it for them to pay you for your thought leadership?
Well,
what flavors does it come in?
Yeah, so it comes in from do it yourself, where I come in and either train your team or, you take one of my courses, or all the way to I do it for you and I bring in some folks to partner with and to make it happen, together. So it really depends on what you're looking for. One of my favorite clients right now, we write content for them each month. We find things that are really relevant to each of their customer demographic and share that information with them, show them how they can do it, because ultimately their sales team needs to be involved in the process, and then spend the time coaching their folks one-on-one so they can get better, because I can't sell insurance. I can't sell your financial products for you. I'm not licensed for that. My whole thing is I can help you leverage the technology and leverage social media and leverage good sales practices to make more money. So really depends how easy or hard you want it to be, how much work you want to do, but I can do most of it for you.
So let me sort of break that down into pieces. You've got your core expertise, you've got a targeted market, and then there's sort of a spectrum is what I heard, right? So you can do advising, you can teach people, you can coach people, you can do the execution of it. You didn't mention speaking, and I want to sort of get back to that, or books, right? Because I would also imagine you can speak in front of audiences that would have target people in there that fit your profile. And you obviously have books. So sort of show me how all those things connect, because your objective is you're going to make more money, obviously, on the services side and that piece of the client world than books. But just show me how it's connected. Walk me through that system.
Sure. So a lot of times it does start out with a speaking event. It could be a speaking event to a chamber, Rotary, a local, local association, a bigger national association. Sometimes they pay, sometimes they don't. It depends. But if the right people are in the audience, I'm willing to waive my fees so that I can get in front of them. And then from there, books or courses or whatever, that all fits in together. It depends on what they need and how much they want to do. And I can also, create something that's more customized for them so that it's got their information in it. Because as we know, It's not about, hey, here's what Phil says you should say. It's no, here's what your customers have said to you. So let's spin that back so that they can hear themselves in what you say in your targeted outreach.
Got it. So all of that content, all of that expertise, all of that thought leadership ultimately has the same DNA. It was born out of your brain, right? Is that
That's right.
okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you've pushed it out and said, hey, for $20 you can buy my book for free. Here's some things that you can read for, whatever the next point is. You've made it easy for me to give you $20 or ultimately $20,000 or more based on the same content. And now the variable or the delta is the level of services or the level of personalization or the level of execution that you're doing.
That's right. Absolutely correct.
Good. You mentioned speaking, and I know you're involved at the NSA. I've seen you there at events. One thing that you said that I think was interesting is paid or unpaid. I think sometimes, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, people get obsessed with speaking for fees. Now, if all you do is speak professionally, I get it, right? You're not going to give that away because that's the product. But I think in a case like yours, which is more common than most, it's great to get paid to speak, right? But you also have to make some decisions to say, is that event worth my time, energy, and effort because it's the right audience? And then, geez, if the only thing getting in between me and getting in front of 300 target people is a couple of bucks for a gig, I'm willing to waive that. So tell me how you go through that decision-making process.
Yeah, well, you nailed it there at the end, Pete. It's all about, who's going to be in the audience. Can they do that? Do I have something they can buy? Are they my target audience? What does it take for me to get to that event? So, if you're going to pay for my expenses, I'll speak, in a lot of places, take a day off my calendar because I'll make sure that I invest my time in the front and the back end to understand that target and to make sure that I have something relevant for them to buy. So I'll go talk to just about any group if they're a target audience, if they are willing to let me at least mention the fact that I have a product. And of course, speaking about something like sales and marketing, I mean, there's no way, even if I did a full day seminar for free, which I wouldn't do a full day, but I'm just saying, if I did a full day, there's still way more that I could offer to customize that would make it useful for them that they could buy that. So as long as they let me mention that, that's usually good. Now, if they don't, then they got to pay. If they're not going to let me sell, then they got to pay. Let's just be honest, right? If I'm going to give you value, then you've got to pay for it and you won't let me extract any back. Okay, that's fine. Because it's all about a value exchange. It's not just about quote unquote getting paid, right? So I might even waive my fee. Like this year, I really want to get some bigger stage video. So I might waive my fee to get on a bigger stage and share my thought leadership so that then I can get to an even bigger audience.
So the exchange there is the video. So one of the things I always find fascinating on the speaker side is clients or prospects are not afraid to say to a speaker, hey, if you do this one, wow, this is going to lead to lots of other things and blah, 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 even if it's not your target market. And I say to myself, geez, I can't go to my dentist and say, if you do this cleaning really good, there's a good chance I'll be back and throw you a cavity next year, right? Like he's going to look at me like I'm out of my mind. But for some reason, people don't look at speaking the buyers as a business that has cost of goods, that has opportunity cost, that the value that you're putting out there. So you're making the decision, you're selecting the criteria that says, yeah, that one makes sense. That's putting me in a bunch of in front of folks, or I want to get collateral of me in front of 1,000 people or whatever the case is. But if it doesn't meet criteria, you're not afraid to say no, I hope.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And you have to be willing to say no. I mean, otherwise you're kind of just selling yourself for whatever pays.
Got it. So a couple other thoughts I want to hear from you is, given that you've been around this space for some time, I'd say 10 plus years, Phil?
Yeah, 10 or almost 15. Yep.
Almost 15. Wow, we're all aging here. A youthful
Yeah.
15. So you started in diapers or something there.
There you go.
Give me a sense from a trend perspective of things that used to work really well, either for you or others that you've observed, that just, nobody's getting the juice out of that lemon anymore. And conversely, things that are newer onto the scene that are gaining traction and then people should be considering and thinking about. What should I do less of and what should I do more of?
Yeah, so do less, boring origin story type speaking. So, spending 15 minutes to get to the point of now I'm ready to start, basically doing your introduction for 15 minutes doesn't work. I mean, not that your origin story isn't important, but it's not 15 minutes important. And it's also no longer the case that everybody is scared to death to get in front of an audience, because now, with more video, people are getting more and more comfortable in front of the camera, which means they're more and more comfortable in front of an audience. If they're taking selfies, they're probably comfortable in front of an audience, maybe not for an hour, but for a couple minutes.
Got it. Okay.
So that doesn't work. It also doesn't work to, tease information and then only offer the solution as a sale. You have to give some value in the program, regardless of whether or not you're being paid for it. Because if you don't, they're not going to think that your program has any value. So let's say you have 10 problems that you solve. Well, only one of them do you solve, maybe, or two of them do you solve in your program that you give away. But you'd have to really help them and demonstrate that you can help them. So used to be not that case.
And I had this conversation with someone the other day where that holdback mentality is so dated, right? So the reality is, if you've got the secret, whatever that is, or you've got a methodology, a process, something that you've discovered, geez, share it, right? So we were just talking earlier today, Phil, on some things that you and I are both doing on LinkedIn, whatever. Share it, because guess what? There's a subset of people that would listen to that would never be your client anyway, but now they're going, hey, that Phil's a smart guy. He taught me something. Maybe at some point in the future, they become a client. And then there are more of those that fit into your client profile that say, wow, he's got a point of view. He's got some expertise. He's got some proven track record. Let me give it to him. But this holdback of, take out your American Express or something and it's $99.99 today and you'll get the secret. I think people are smarter than that right now. That's a very consumer psychology based play that just is quite frankly intellectually offensive to most.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing that's really the case, that you cannot be that holdback person. But we talk about what's working, which I think is honestly just a lot more interesting. And that is,
first
of all, relationships are working. So if you've been building relationships, and I've been fortunate, as you said, Pete, we've known each other like 10 years, man. We totally refer each other business, right?
Yep.
We talk to each other. We know what each other does. That relationship that you've built. So that means you started yesterday. You didn't start today trying to build your network, but relationships work. If you've been giving for a long time, Pete, you're great at this, man. You give a lot of value. People are able then to refer you business, even if they've not done business with you, which is pretty cool. So relationships are really working. And along the lines of relationships, that's why LinkedIn works so well. If you're willing to give, if you're willing to build relationship, and if you're not just showing up and throwing up. LinkedIn works really, really well if you have a target, if you have a good message, and if you really customize that to the person that you're trying to talk to. It can work incredibly well. So that works really well. And along those lines, so do webinars, where you offer some value and then you have a follow-up that goes deeper in order to really, really fix a problem.
So one thing that you mentioned on the relationship side, obviously they haven't gone out of style, right? We just have more ways to develop a relationship. You and I had a relationship for years before we ever met in person, right? And by the time we met, it's like, yo, bro, like there was this connection because we're communicating and sharing and all these things for years and years and years. So that's helpful. The other thing that I think is interesting about that is the worst sort of contacts I get, or inbound emails or LinkedIn or whatever, is someone I really don't know or don't know well. Maybe I recognize the name, haven't spoke to them in years, and they come out of the blue and they need 5 favors from me. And I'm like, whoa, like, can you, I see you're connected to so-and-so. Can you, make a connection because I now sell insurance. Like, I'm not going to vouch for you, right? That's just gross. And I think a lot of people don't do things or do things online that they would never do in person. I'd never walk up to basically someone that's almost a stranger at the airport and say, hey, can you introduce me to your best friend? Because I want to sell him some crap. But they'll do that on social, and they don't realize that it's the same ick factor that I get digitally that I would get, if we're at a cocktail party or something.
That is so funny and so true, Pete. That is disgusting. If you wouldn't do it in person, what the heck do you think you're doing online doing that? It does not work. So please, folks, if you're listening to this and you hear us talk about LinkedIn, it doesn't mean you can go make a connection with Pete and I, though we might say yes, and then expect that we're going to introduce you to our best friends so you can puke all over them.
Yeah, I put that in parallel. Walking into a cocktail party, banging the glass and screaming at the top of your lungs. Hey, I'm here. I'm going to sell you something. Like it's sort of the same thing. So, relationships are working. Giving away the content's working. What else should I be doing more of? I'm sitting at home now. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I'm a thought leader. I've got some great stuff. Maybe I've got a book or two, and I want to hear from Phil. What do I do? What do I do more of, Phil?
Well, more video. Video definitely is getting a lot of play. And video, I encourage you, caption it, letterbox it, and make it so that people don't necessarily have to listen to it, but that they can see your energy in the videos. And they don't have to be professionally developed, but the sound does have to be good. And you do have to offer some context around it. It's really important that you contextualize those videos, that you explain, what's going to be in the video, because the first time people they might stop and they let it run through. And then if you have some context around it, they might click in so that they can actually get flavor for that and repeat the question and the answer throughout the video a couple of times and go shorter. So even if you do 90 seconds, set it up with that question, answer the question, set up the question again and re-answer it another way.
Mm-hmm.
That's working really well. And then getting on other people's podcasts and showing that you are a thought leader, not just having your own, though that's great, but being on other people's podcasts gives you an opportunity to really show off the fact that you're smart and now I can piggyback on your audience.
I love that. So let me ask a couple of follow-up questions on that. So on the video side, a couple thoughts. There's the church and state of paid and marketing, right? So tell me about that. So you've got video that you're doing for marketing purposes to get out and show your wares, right? Show people what you're made of, show people what you're thinking is. And then there's, obviously ultimately video that could be for sale, baked into a learning system. So tell me sort of how do you divide those two pieces?
Yeah. So I think of it as live video and then produced video. So live video, I'm not going to edit.
Okay.
I'm just going to shoot it, right? So I'm going to take, in this case, I'm going to have a selfie stick because I want to stabilize it. And I want to make sure that it doesn't look all bumpy and choppy, though that's not perfect either, but it gives me a little bit more space so I can show a little bit more interesting background. So I might shoot that on the beach. I might shoot that, in my neighborhood. I might shoot that on location at an event. So I call that live video. That's unproduced and just quick insight that I might have, something I noticed today.
But it's almost, there's a sense of casualness to that, right? You don't have to be all stuffy in a green screen and all that sort of stuff. It's just a day in the life where you went to Starbucks and got a cup of coffee and had an interesting experience that you want to share. It's sort of spontaneous, improvised, casual-ish. It's the real Phil. You don't need to be all polished up or whatever.
That's right. Yep. Which is why I call it live, right? It's kind of uncut, unedited, right?
Good. Got it.
And then the second piece is that produced video. So if I'm going to go and I'm going to shoot green screen, I'm going to spend the money and get that done right. So for actually, after we talk today, Pete, I'm actually going to talk to a videographer about setting up some video that I can then use in my learning system so that we have some video there. And that's the produced side, right? That's the stuff that I'm really mindful of. Yep. I might script out. Yep. I know my points. I want to hit my points. I want to be really succinct. And not that I want to memorize it, but I want to certainly know my points so I get to the point and make my points well. And then in between there, I've kind of got the live but produced. And that's if I speak at an event, they might cut out a piece of that and share that up. Or, I might take a small piece of my learning management system and put that up. So kind of in between there also exists. But if you think about live and you think about produced and you focus, I think, on those little 90-second live clips that then play into a bigger solution, you can be a lot better off. And you can
little nuggets. So those 90 seconds are ultimately sort of Lego pieces that you can stack.
Yeah, that's right. Not only can they stack, but they're great to give people an opportunity to feel your energy.
I love it. So one thing I'll give you a shout out, Phil, because in terms of energy, it always comes across in the podcast. It always comes across in the video. And then there's a visual piece where, every time I hear your name or see your name in an email, I'm always thinking crazy colored glasses, right? That's sort of one of your trademarks is you've always got either some bright, cool, funky glasses that you're wearing. And it might seem silly, but it sticks out, right? So I know when we're at an event, a large event or something, people are buzzing around. Oh, do you see that guy with those crazy orange glasses? And it's like, that's a good thing. And I would assume that's not an accident, right? There's some thought that went behind that.
Yeah, well, it isn't an accident now. It started out accidental, but I realize that people don't do that. They're not brave. They don't want to share their personality, in that way, or they think, oh, it looks silly. Well, like this morning, I've got my bright white glasses on. I've got bright orange glasses. I've got green glasses. I've got even some bright blue ones. And the goal, yeah, to your point, Pete, it is to make yourself memorable and to make yourself approachable. I mean, who can't talk to the guy with white glasses of, hey, dude, I love your glasses. Okay, well, that's an easy opener. And I want people to feel comfortable to come up and talk to me.
I love that. I love that. So last thing, two last things. Or then that wouldn't be the last thing. Second to the last and the last thing, if we do the math on that. One is you mentioned podcasts. So this is early for us in our podcast career at Thought Leadership Leverage. I've been doing guest podcasting for a year, and I love it because to me, writing is a challenge. And if you've read anything I've written, you can probably tell that. But this is so much fun, right? This is a conversation. It's not that there's no planning or thoughtfulness or whatever that goes into this. To me, just my style, it's more natural. I'm a conversationalist to just have two, relatively smart dudes chatting away and hoping people get benefit from that. And on the guesting side, it's actually not that hard to get booked as a guest on a podcast, right? You figure out who your target is. You know who your target market is. You figure out what they're listening to. You reach out to the podcasters there. They're always looking for great content. And, you make your case. Like how often are you a guest on a podcast these days, Phil?
Oh boy, I would say probably every other week. So I probably do 25 to 35 a year. Of them, sometimes more. I really like it. It is a conversation. I mean, that's the key. I hate podcasts that are scripted. Here's the 10 questions I always ask. In fact, I usually turn those down.
Exactly. And what's interesting about it from a leveraging your content perspective is ultimately today you're hijacking my audience, right? And then I'll be on your podcast and hijack your audience in a positive way, right? Because my world is like everybody's world is limited. So every time I do a podcast, I'm like, great, that person has expertise, that person has a followership, that person has people to get in front of that align with the people I want to get in front of, and they're coming to listen to him, and it's an honor for me to be part of that conversation, and maybe something cool comes out of that.
Yeah, I would call it piggyback. Don't call it hijack, because I hear and I say that because I hear people that take over the conversation, Pete, and that's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to piggyback and align yourself with the audience. So it's really important, just mentally, that you think the difference is you want to piggyback, you don't want to hijack.
No, that's a great point. So let me just sort of wrap up with a final request of you. So out there right now is a young Phil, right? And maybe he's got some cool glasses, maybe he doesn't. He's making his mark in the world and he's trying to figure it out. What's the advice that you'd give to yourself 15 years ago?
Wow, 15 years ago. Well, it's funny you asked that because my blog actually started 13 years ago. So I would have started my blog 15 years ago. Instead, I would have, 2 years sooner than I did. I would have saved every single recording I did, every podcast that I did. I would have done a better job of saving them. I actually found an old Seth Godin interview that I did when he released Meatball Sunday. That's gold. I mean, that's so cool that I have that. So I'd have saved that, and I can tell you that I would have gotten involved in video sooner than later. Even though now I'm totally fearless on video, I wasn't always the case. I'm like, hey, nobody wants to see me on video. Well, that might be the case, but I'm never going to get good if I don't practice. So starting video 15 years ago would have been really important.
Awesome. Great stuff. Well, I appreciate so much you joining us today. We're going to have our work cut out for us, sort of recapping the highlights, because you gave us so much information in terms of the targeted market, the use of video, both sort of live and produced, the podcasting. So many nuggets there, Phil, which I appreciate, and I hope everybody listening appreciates. Thank you again for your time, and I hope to talk to you again shortly, Phil. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Peter.
To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.